This week, Shabbos Parshas Pekudei Chazak, which on a side note is very uncommon when it's a Shana Pshuta, when it's not a leap year, that Vayakol Pekudei should be separate. On a leap year, that we have 4 more Shabbosim, Be'erach in a year, we have to add in more Parshas, so then we split the Parshas. But on a non-leap year, Vayakol Pekudei is always together. Very rarely is it separate. In the last 120 years, thanks to Rabbi Heber's cheshbonis, and I'm gratefully any of such shilas I could speak to him, and he clarifies. In the last 120 years, it only happened twice, in 1974 and 1994. The next time it's going to be split, Vayakol Pekudei in a Shana Pshuta, is going to be in 20 years. Upon him, this Shabbos, Parshas Pekudei, is also Shabbos Hachodesh, the 4th of the Dalet Parshas. That means we take out 2 Sefer Torah. The first Kriya is the Kriya of Pekudei, and the second Kriya is the Kriya of Hachodesh Azel Lachem Rosh Chodashim, the Kriya of Parshas Bais. And then the Haftorah is the Haftorah of Hachodesh, which is Me'en of Hachodesh Azel Lachem Rosh Chodashim. Hashem Elikim Berishon Be'echad L'Chodesh, speaking about B'doimet to what the Torah Hachodesh Azel Lachem Rosh Chodashim. That's the connection of the Haftorah of Parshas Hachodesh. I would like to focus on something that, being that this year it's something unique, as we're speaking a lot, the Shiurim B'negei Erev Pesach Shechalias B'Shabbos. Memela, what comes out to be is that Rosh Chodesh Nisan is Sunday, which, by the way, this setup, the Parsha in this week's Parsha, the Torah speaks about it. The Torah says, "V'hi b'chodesh harishon." That's Rosh Chodesh Nisan. B'shana Hashem is the second year, not the year that they went out of Mitzrayim. Pesach was Thursday, but the second year, be'echad l'chodesh, the first day, Aleph Nisan. When was this? So the Gemara says, Eser HaToros happened, or not al Rosh Chodesh Nisan. And one of them is that it was Sunday, Rishon, the first day of the week. Al Kapanim, the Torah already speaks about a year like this year, that Rosh Chodesh is Sunday. On a regular week, when Shabbos is Rosh Chodesh, being that there's a second Kriya of Rosh Chodesh, the Haftorah is connected to the last Kriya, the Kriya of Rosh Chodesh, and Shemayim Kisi. Anytime, Shabbos Chanukah, the Haftorah is connected to the second Kriya. The Gemara says that if Rosh Chodesh is Sunday, there's a unique Haftorah that's not connected to any of the Kriyas. As a matter of fact, there's only the Kriya of the Parsha. You read Haftorah of Machar Chodesh, which is a discussion for itself. We spoke about it in the past. Where do you find such a thing, to read a Haftorah that's not connected to the Parsha? The whole takana of Haftorah was because they couldn't learn the Chumash, so we learned something connected to the Torah. Every Haftorah has a connection to the Parsha, or at least to the latest Kriya, to Shkolim, to Rosh Chodesh. Machar Chodesh is something not connected at all. Okay, that's a Shaila. But Al Kapanim, the Gemara says we read the Haftorah of Machar Chodesh. Here, it's very interesting. Here, and it can happen also on Shabbos Shkolim. Shabbos Shkolim this year was Shabbos Rosh Chodesh. If you remember, 4 weeks ago, we took out 3 Sefer Torah. The Parshas HaShavua, Rosh Chodesh, and Shkolim. What was the Haftorah? I'll tell you what the Haftorah was. It was Shkolim. B'mayda Salak Minei, the last Kriya was Shkolim, and therefore the Haftorah is Shkolim. And not Rosh Chodesh. If it's Erev Rosh Chodesh, technically, let's say Shabbos Shkolim would be Erev Rosh Chodesh. You have the Parshas HaShavua and you have Shkolim. What Haftorah do you learn? Haftorah of Shkolim. This Shabbos HaChodesh, you have the Parshas HaShavua Pekudei, and the Haftorah of Hachodesh. Which Haftorah? Hachodesh. Frek Tosafos and Megillah, and Tosafos' Kasha is a Kasha on this week that's not going to be Negea for another 20 years. So let's learn together this Tosafos that's Negea L'maisa for this Shabbos, and it's very not common to be Negea only, like we said, the next time is in 20 years. For Tosafos, the Machar Chodesh Haftorah always overrides and, let's call it, knocks out the Haftorah of the week. Let's say, for an example, Parshas Chaim told us is Erev Rosh Chodesh. You don't lane the Haftorah of the Parsha, even though you're not going to lane it again the whole year, and you lane Machar Chodesh. Frek Tosafos, why don't we lane this Parsha, Parshas Pekudei? The Haftorah should be Machar Chodesh, and not the Haftorah, of Hachodesh that's connected to Hachodesh. Now, the Marsha explains why the Tosafos only ask B'negeya Machar Chodesh. What happens if Shabbos, Rosh Chodesh, Nisan? Why doesn't Tosafos ask that you should read Hashemayim Kissi, the Haftorah of Rosh Chodesh? But Tosafos asks, and instead, in other words, why don't you lay Rosh Chodesh instead of Hashemayim Kissi? You should lay Hashemayim Kissi instead of the Haftorah Chodesh. So the Marsha explains that it's only a shaila only on Erev Rosh Chodesh. Why only on Erev Rosh Chodesh? Explains the Marsha that the Bachar Chodesh takes away the Haftorah that you're supposed to lay. Masha Enkin Shabbos Rosh Chodesh. So if you would have 3 Sifrei Torah this week, so then you lay b'may desalak minei. No one ever thought that the Shabbos Rosh Chodesh Haftorah should knock out a different Haftorah. Mashenkin Machar Chodesh, that's not connected to anything within the Kriyas, takes away the Kriya of the Parshas HaShavua. So Ibazoi Machar Chodesh Frek Tosafos should take away the Kriya of this Haftorah that speaks about Shabbos HaChodesh. Azoi Frek Tosafos. Tosafos doesn't answer, but Tosafos asks the same question Lagabe Shkolim, and I want to be Makatzer. The same thing would be Lagabe if Shabbos Shkolim is Erev Rosh Chodesh. For Tosafos, why do you read Shkolim? You should read Machar Chodesh. And Tosafos says that in the Haftorah of Shabbos Shkolim speaks about Rosh Chodesh, because Shkolim, when do you give Shkolim? Be'echad Rosh Chodesh Adar. So the Haftorah speaks about Rosh Chodesh, so maybe it's like Machar Chodesh. Zok the Marsha, the same thing is also Lagabe this Haftorah. When we read the Haftorah of Hachodesh, Koyamar Hashem, Barishain Be'echad LaChodesh. So the Haftorah, when we're going to read this Shabbos, the Haftorah of Hachodesh, the Haftorah speaks about Machar Chodesh as well also. It doesn't say the words Machar Chodesh, but it speaks about Rosh Chodesh. So therefore, we do not read Machar Chodesh. Just to conclude, in the Lahalacha, so that's clear when we read the Haftorah of Parshas Hachodesh. The Mechaber says that when Shabbos is Rosh Chodesh and Sunday is Rosh Chodesh, so over there, Avadi, you read the Haftorah Rosh Chodesh. You're not going to read Machar Chodesh, because today is Rosh Chodesh. However, the Mechaber says that you add on 2 psukim from the Haftorah of Machar Chodesh. That's the Mechaber. The Ramah argues you do not. Machloikis Lamaisa, on such a case, even though the Ramah says not, Minig Chabad and Minig in many other in other places also is to add on. Tzans, Vishnitz, others also have the Minig to add on these 2 psukim. 2 psukim from Machar Chodesh. This week, it's really a shaila if you do it, and I'll explain. Every week, every time when it's Shabbos Rosh Chodesh and Sundays Rosh Chodesh, so we understand we don't read Machar Chodesh because today's Rosh Chodesh. But a week like this week, really Machar Chodesh should override Hachodesh. The reason why it doesn't is because in the Haftorah Hachodesh we have Machar Chodesh. But be'etzem it should. It doesn't, because it's included in the Haftorah. So really, there would be a makom to say that a week like this week, you actually do not add on the 2 psukim. If you take a look in the Mechaber, in Hilch by Shkolim, on Shabbos or Hachodesh, the Mechaber says you take out 3 Sifrei Torah, and the Mechaber tells us, you know which Haftorah you lane? The Haftorah of Shkolim. The Mechaber over there doesn't say that you add on psukim of Mocher Chodesh, like he says in Chelik Daled, on a regular Shabbos or Hachodesh and Sunday, which would seem maybe you don't. L'maisa, the minig by those that are moisef, l'moshe, like we mentioned before, minig Chabad. I saw it brought a minig Chabad, even a Shabbos like this Shabbos, also to be moisef the 2 psukim. If you're not moisef and you go up either Ramah, the minig is not to be moisef, so you're not moisef this week. But if you are moisef, the Mechaber, it would be maybe a shaila maybe that this week not to be moisef. L'maisa afal became the minig by many is still to be moisef. Have a wonderful Shabbos and a good Chodesh.